Hey, Tyler, great to be with you this afternoon for Be the Bison conversation and leading through the storm. Excited to be with you. Thank you very much. So before we get started, maybe if you don't mind, just take a minute or two, just a little context and background. I know that we're working on a number of things together
Yeah.
in the community, but tell us a little bit of who you are and why you think you want to share something about Be the Bison going through the storm.
Thanks so much for the invite, Andrew. I'm really excited. Love the concept. Little background of my connection to bison is that I lived in Wyoming and North Dakota as a kid and got to see bison in the wild, but also there was this giant park in this little town that I lived in junior high that had a ton of bison and it was freezing. And, back in those days, we rode our bikes uphill both ways. Remember that in the snowstorms? Andrew, remember that? My kids don't believe me. They think it's dad lore. But there was these bison that would come up to the fence and they just didn't seem to mind the storm. So when you said be the bison, without even describing what it was, I was like, that is it. That's the whole thing. So thank you for inviting me along. I'm a career coach. I was a long time recruiter and recruiting leader, director of talent acquisition, stuff like that for lots of interesting companies. And the story that I'm going to tell today comes out of that environment. It's super interesting to me for a couple of reasons. Don't know that it was the toughest thing I've ever gone through, but it was just something that came to mind, not only for me personally going through a storm, but for the company I was with going through a storm as well. So I thought I'd talk about that today.
That's great. Yeah, and for old school guys like us, there's just so much, metaphor behind Be the Bison, right? And we could
Mm,
probably hours talking about your childhood experience of growing up with that and, my recent, experiences as well. But hey, I'm excited to hear you share a story. So why don't you tee it up for us? Give us
yeah.
a context here and some background.
Well, a friend of mine through the recruiting days, I'd been a recruiter for a long time, and a friend of mine got a job as a director of recruiting at SpaceX. And she called me up and goes, Tyler, you wanna come work over at SpaceX? I said, absolutely, I do. And this is 2014-ish. And I went in for the interview, and the interview was great. I crushed the interview. But my friend, frankly, came up to me and she goes, I'm not going to make you the offer, Tyler. And I said, why not? And she goes, well, your wife is pregnant with child number 3, and I have worked 22 days in a row with no break. And each of those days was like 16 hours. And I, I can't bring you into that type of environment knowing that there's nothing I can do to decrease the workload. There's nothing I can do about the workload. So I'm not going to make you the offer. And I was like, Christine, I love that about you, that you care enough about me to tell me that, and also that you're telling me I did not get the job because of capability sake, but you just you care enough about me not to offer me the job. So my wife and I at that time had a trip already planned to Israel, which was absolutely mind-boggling. That's a whole nother story. It's just amazing story. And while we're on the Sea of Galilee at our hotel, in between adventures, I think the next day we were going to go up and we were going to see the area where Jesus had a fish fry on the coast and restored Peter and said, "Feed my sheep" to the Peter. So we were about to go there, and I got a phone call, and or a text or something. I don't know how it worked on my phone over there, but it did, and it was one of the directors who had interviewed me, said, "Hey, Tyler, I've got room on my team. You want to come to work for me?" And I was like, "Absolutely, I do." So it was a contract situation over there. I came in as a senior lead contract recruiter over at SpaceX in Hawthorne, California. I was living in Los Angeles at the time, and so I came in and I started working in quite the environment. It was again circa 2014. They had not yet successfully landed one of the rockets on a barge like they do routinely now. It's absolutely amazing. So they were trying to get to that stage. They had pretty much done everything they needed to do to get safe rockets up there, and they had it. They were working on the capsules as well to take astronauts to the ISS, um, And so during that time, I got hired into a team that already was really big and bloated with with HR. And HR, was kind of old school HR. Actually, the head was the same head of HR that I had back at Fox Interactive Media and MySpace, several years before that time. And I'm working at these low cubes. And imagine, in SpaceX and Hawthorne, there's like several thousand square feet on the second floor with all these low cubes. Everybody is in a low cube in the whole company, except for Elon and Gwen Shotwell, the president of the company. And Elon was never there because he was running 3 companies at the time. Now he's running 5.
Right.
I don't know how he does it, but at any rate, we were we were in we were in our low cubes, and I looked up and I saw my VP of HR, the 3 directors, and half the recruiting team walking out the door, guided by security with boxes of stuff in their hands. They were summarily walked out of the building. I only been there for 3 weeks, Andrew, and I'm thinking, what did I get myself into? Maybe Christine was right. Maybe this was a huge mistake. And so I get an email directly from Elon, and it said, "Hey, meet in so-and-so room." All of the meeting rooms are named after moons of planets. So meet in Ganymede. And I'm like, I don't know what's going to happen. So I go down to Ganymede, and a room with maybe about 25 people in the room, with the richest man in the world. He was already the richest man in the world at that time, one of the most influential people in the world, just waiting to hear what just happened, what's going to happen next. I didn't know. So we're sitting there, and in his very calm, understated South African accent, he said, "If you're here in this room, I want you to take a sigh of relief and a little bit of breath. Somebody has vouched for your work, and there will be no more cuts. So you guys are good moving forward," which is exactly the way to start that conversation, because it's all we were thinking in our heads is,
I'm out the
"Honey,
door.
honey, I'm coming home early. What are we
Yeah.
having for dinner?" And so he let us know that, and then he continued on in his very carefully thought out, chosen words, and he basically said, "HR has become too much noise and not enough signal. And we are driving towards a time where right now it takes 22 days to make a rocket. We're going to get that down to 18 days in 3 months. So we're going to cut 25% of the time that it makes to make a rocket. And it's incredibly complex. There's like 16 layers of composite material that get wound up into this whole thing, and then they have to test it because it's undergoing tremendous stress with these non-destructive tests. It's an engineering marvel. It's unbelievable. Plus, they were making they were fine tuning the rockets on there so they could land the thing. Anyway, so we go back to our desks, and now the real challenge begins. The part B of this challenge is like, the first part was, making it through a storm like that and having your job, and wondering, if do I need to worry about my job? But the second part was, how are we going to do that big company challenge of getting it down to 18 days, cutting 4 days off of the process, so that eventually we could get it down to 14 days and get these things back up in the thing, because he had a long range vision idea. Well, I'm sitting there and I'm going, okay, I'm a very skilled recruiter. What do I need to do at this moment in time? And I realized that what I needed to do at this moment in time was continue to execute, but I needed to immediately pivot and connect to the big picture change that Elon had just put out there. And wow. we got a subsequent email, maybe a week later or something like that. All of us, everybody in those 3,000 cubes, got this email at the same time. You can hear us all taking a breath and clicking, because it's directly from Elon. It's not from, associate or something like that. It's like, uh-oh, what's going on? Clicked on that one again. He goes, effective immediately. If you are in a room or in a somewhere other than your desk, in a meeting that does not directly contribute to the cutting of time from 22 to 18 days, please get up, walk out of that room, go back to your desk and get some work done. And if your boss has any problem with that, tell him to take it up with me. Sincerely, Elon Musk. And
Wow.
everybody goes, whoa. And there was like 20 of those rooms because everybody's collaborating all the time. They got up out of those rooms, went back to their desk, and it was like every man on deck. I hired you for a reason. Do your job, And I was just thinking, that is amazing. So it was a great connection of execution needing to be better, more signal, less noise, and then connecting to a large vision because we at that point had $3.4 billion in flights already booked for the next like 5 years or something like that. And we hadn't landed our first rocket yet, but we did smash it into that drone, and at nighttime it was really, really exciting. Everybody was like, yay. So it was a fun time for me and a challenge for me.
Nice. Amazing. Just kind of listening to that story, I obviously know who Elon is, don't know him personally, but, can see the character in that, can see the setup of walking into that room right after you've just watched a bunch of people being exited by security. Like, okay, I guess I might be next. So the uncertainty,
Yeah.
what's on the other side of the storm, right? And then, coming out of that and saying, okay, well, I've gotten through the storm. Now, how do I, where do I look, left, right, or do I go straight? And it sounds like, you're describing, okay, I need to go full force, straight on, align with the mission, and keep going. What maybe a one or two things, that you talked about, maybe some things of getting through that. So less, I wrote down, more signal, less noise, connecting to the vision. Is there any other kind of things
Yeah,
that you want to share?
it's a great question, Andrew. And I spend a lot of my time as a coach pulling these out of people when they come to me. They're at some crux in their career. Either they've gotten to a point where they realize this is not for them and they need to make a pivot, or the boss isn't for them, or the company, or something's not going right, and they don't always have an idea of what that is. And so the first thing that we do is we just do some assessments, and the assessments that we choose to do are personality, values, and EIQ. And the reason I do that is because as a Christian in the workforce, I believe that all of our beliefs come from the deepest beliefs that we possibly have, and that's our belief about God. Does he
Mm.
exist? Yes, no. Is he the God of the Christian Bible? Yes, no. Do we follow that God? Do I make that part of my daily or not? And knowing those things makes some of the other decisions in life really a ton easier, Andrew. I know you know this because we're enjoying together in a couple of ways that are explicitly trying to do that. And so when you get these tests like this, Elon is in no way, shape, or form a Christian, to my knowledge. And I've seen some interviews where they were poking him pretty hard and trying to get him to go that. And he goes, well, it's not unreasonable to be a Christian, but I'm not one, And so you get into that crux. And I went right down to my identity as a child of God. How am I to respond to this challenge that's in front of me right now? And what is my identity moving through this? And my identity is a couple of different things. I'm a child of God. I am a seasoned recruiter who has been through many, many pressure-ridden things where we were trying to do the impossible with hiring. We were going to gain 25%. The hiring plan was we were at 3,000. We were going to be 4,000 by the end of the year. And these engineers had to be top of the game. They had to be the best. And so I've got to do those things. My superpower that I use, my personality superpower, was that I am in the Myers-Briggs type indicator terminology. I'm an NT. I'm an intuitive thinker. And that means I am a systemic, big picture connector of dots. I
Mhm.
see around corners, I see through things because I see the way things relate to each other. And so the relating was the old school way of doing HR/recruiting. I'm not really sure why recruiting is stuck in HR because we're really sales guys or marketing people, really, is what we are for people. But at any rate, what are the tactical things that I can do to connect to selling a vision that Elon has of getting it down. The short-term vision is getting it down into turning this into Henry Ford's version of aerospace,
Yeah.
just cranking them out. And then the long-term vision is how can we be the shuttle out to the International Space Station? And the real long-term vision is how can we create the vehicles that are going to get people to Mars? And he actually cared about it. I bought some gear of his that it was during the Occupy times, which was a little political thing that was happening where people would just do sit-ins at these different things. He made these shirts called Occupy Mars. And so that was his long-term vision. And I think my superpower was not getting my feelings hurt about the immediate things that was happening and going, you need to align the tactical with the big picture vision, and you need to use systems to do that. So I helped him. I helped them use their applicant tracking system in a different way. They were all over the place. They weren't using it for the right things. Elon found out that it was taking an average of 3 weeks from the time somebody applied to the time they got the response of thank you, they applied, and he hit the wall. He's like, what is going on? If this continues beyond next Monday, all of you are fired.
Yeah.
And so I came in and I said, no, easy to do if we just use the system. So I helped integrate the system in to solve that problem and move forward. So I think my integration of the big and the small, the detailed to the big picture, and then my way of looking at systemic solutions rather than band-aids was kind of what helped me get through that storm.
That's awesome. Well, great insight. So maybe just to wrap it up, and then maybe you can leave us with just a quick nugget. So some of the things that I heard that I really liked, and I'm relating this, of course, to the Bison experience and going through the storm. You had talked about creation, right? It's phenomenal to see the strength and for lack of a better word, maybe the courage and resolve that a Bison has, thinking about going into the storm, but not doing it alone, right? You talked about that superpower, right? And knowing what that is, and coming out of that storm and pivoting, but yeah, then saying, realize, hey, this is my strength. This is how I'm designed. This is my identity. I'm going forth. There's some great analogies for leadership there, Tyler. But what's maybe a nugget to leave us with, and then we'll close it out.
Yeah, I would say that the nugget to leave it with is understanding your identity at core. So you don't get shaken even by powerful men, even by powerful things that are around you, even when things are totally out of our control, which really, if we're honest, Andrew, is most things. I mean, we control very little besides our attitude in this world, and so grab onto those things and own the stuff that you can own. And even if had I been walked out of the building, I would hope that I would have learned something out of that other than, oh, Elon's a big meanie, that's not helpful to me in my development. It's not helpful to me in my identity as somebody who can come in and do what needs to be done. So I would give the advice of going, if you're kind of iffy on what your identity is and what your superpowers are, spend some time doing that. And there's lots of tools out there now. You don't necessarily need to use a tool, but find out what those are, and then zoom out to the big things. I buried my dad a year and a half ago. At age 85, it still felt too young, but 85 years is, you can hope to get 85 years on the planet, right? You can hope for that. And out of that chunk of time, there's going to be a big old chunk where we're working, Andrew, and we're influencing people, and we're making something, or we're selling a widget, or we're doing a service, or whatever it happens to be. But the big long-term legacy that we leave is going to be more than that widget, more than those things that we sell. It's going to be people who are eternal. And I think that integrating that idea into my identity kind of helped me actually see it after the initial shock as an opportunity to really do meaningful work. And now every time I see a launch, I'm just excited that I had a little tiny hand in hiring some of those really smart people who solved those very, very big problems. And not a moment too soon, because, Boeing's problems with their shuttle out to the International Space Station allowed SpaceX to step up and go, we got it.
Yeah. Good, good nugget. Love what you said about knowing your identity. Zoom out. Realize that there's some big challenges, big opportunities there. Know your superpower and go for it. If the storm comes again, you'll be more prepared probably. So, Tyler, good conversation. For those that are listening, again, just go to Solid Leaders and click on Be the Bison. You can check out this or other, go to our social media sites. And then Tyler, for people that want to connect with you, they can reach out on LinkedIn, I'm assuming.
They can indeed. I'm Tyler Towns on LinkedIn, and my website, in case you're interested in connecting to your superpowers and those kinds of things, and you need some coaching along the way. It's Stone Allen. That's the name of my company. Stone, StoneAllen.com. StoneAllen.com.
All right, Tyler, thanks. Appreciate it. Look forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you, Andrew. This has been a lot of fun. Great job.